Hello there, it's Psychic Cynthia here, Spiritual Psychic Cynthia Killian, and welcome. Welcome to you, fellow cosmic travelers and seekers of the higher light. And happy summer for those of you like me who are living in the northern hemisphere. Happy summer and happy summer solstice. And to all of my psychic friends and peeps down under, happy winter. Happy winter solstice to you. This is the time of the year wherever you live where the sun will enter Cancer. And for where I live in the northern hemisphere and where many of you live watching this marks our summer solstice. And the summer solstice, or the June solstice, if you will, this year, is happening on June 21st. 2022. And this is a time of great reset and realignment. When we look at this time of sun moving into Cancer, I mean, what is the sign of Cancer? It's a very deep energy. It is a watery energy, which is sort of ironic because summer is associated with fire. But what do fire and water elements have in common? Many things actually, but one of the things those two elements bring together are the element of cleansing. Fire and water are both cleansing. They're also both very intuitive and spiritual elements. Actually, water is intuitive and fire is considered spiritual because it rises up to the heavens. So this is undoubtedly a very spiritual time. This is an activation. The summer solstice and what it means, it's a powerful shift. You shouldn't underestimate it. And you know, here in the northern hemisphere, we have more light than at any other time of the year around the solstice. And light is the most powerful physical energy or force on Earth. All life on Earth responds to the light of the sun, which, don't forget, is actually a star. Even though sometimes in astrology, when we're talking about planets, we mention the sun, but we astrologers know it's a star. We call it a luminary, actually. So it's a luminary, but it's a star. So this very powerful star is on this day of the solstice, and again, that's June 21st, 2022. This great star we call the sun is crossing its northernmost point for the year. And that's true wherever you live, by the way. That's not affected by where you're at in the planet. That's just where the sun is moving. The star, the great star, is shining in the north. It's furthest north point. And for those of you who are more metaphysically inclined, especially who attune with the shamanic directions or the occultic directions, the north is the direction of, well, many things. The ancestors, earth in some systems, water in others. Definitely water in many of the shamanic systems. Actually, north is associated with that. But then in the Western occultism, we have north being associated with water, with earth. So is it earth or is it water? Maybe a little bit of both, I think. But anyway, the sun is furthest north, and I think of north as being associated with there's a phrase like your North Star, which is your path of purpose or your soul alignment. So this is a very soulful time. And indeed, the time of the year when the sun is in Cancer is a very soulful time. One of the words that comes to mind is replenishment. So this is a time of the year when you need to ask yourself what you're needing to do, what you need to focus on for your own replenishment, your own renewal. Cancer is a very sensitive sign. So for the next month, and by the way, this forecast is really for more like 3 months. So if you're coming here later, that's okay. But let's talk about the next month just for a second. because this is the beginning of the 3-month cycle. So the next month is very crucial, very pivotal, and it really shows the keynotes, the flavor of this whole season, this whole 3-month cycle. And with Cancer, being let's think of it like if it was music, this would be the bass note. So Cancer is the bass note of this 3-month cycle between now and the equinox. And the other notes are Virgo and Leo and Virgo, I should say. So we go Cancer, Leo, Virgo in terms of the movements of the sun, the great star. And so for the next month, from approximately June 21st to August 21st, 22nd, it's probably a little bit later, we're going to be feeling these deep, watery, soulful energies of Cancer. And it's a very sensitive sign. It's very much about feeling and emotion. So, have you noticed some deep issues being activated lately? Some deep feelings? Maybe you're more emotional than normal. Maybe you find yourself moved to tears easily or just feeling overwhelmed more so than normal. Because Cancer does activate all the deep hidden, the deepest feelings. When I say deep too, I mean old as well. Going back to your childhood and past lives. So you most likely will see a reactivation of some kind of childhood patterns right around the time of this summer solstice, or let's say June solstice, wherever you live, even if it's the winter solstice for you. The time that the sun enters Cancer, this is a time of reactivation of patterns. So, childhood patterns. So some of those same old issues that have been with you your whole life, and listen, we all have them. You can work on yourself, and I think many of us do, I know many of you do who are watching this, and I do. But those old issues, they don't go away easy, because I think a lot of them are from past lives too. So that's why just, cut yourself some slack. If you have a childhood issue that comes back up, say it's an abandonment issue, because that's a real deep one, I think, with Cancer, is, oh no, is mommy or daddy going to abandon me again, right? Or older brother, older sister, or cousin, or I don't know, lover, or whoever. Abandonment seems to be one of the core issues with Cancer. Cancer has a lot to do with safety and security, or not feeling safe, not feeling secure. So that's insecurities, right? That's fear, fear for your safety, instability, which, with all the stuff going on in the world, just apart from this particular subset of astrology, there are collective energies, unfolding now that activate insecurities. And now we're entering into Sun in Cancer for the next month. So yes, a lot of that will come up, and some of those really deep-seated insecurities and abandonment issues. There's other things that could come up too, just feelings of inadequacy, feeling that you're not enough or you'll never be enough. I don't know. I don't know what it is for you. I think if you look at your childhood a little bit, it's probably pretty easy to see. And even if you don't, there's issues that just keep coming up, right? No matter how much work you do on yourself. And maybe you think you've healed it. And, well, here's a whole another level, another layer of it. I think that's a way to look at it. Like you're peeling back the deep layers. And it doesn't mean you haven't healed, okay? It just means there's a little bit more work to do. So look at that. Don't be surprised if in the next month, or even two really, because moving into Leo, well, then that will be, again, basically sometime around August 22nd. I don't have the exact date here right now, but around that, August 22nd date, upwards to September 21st to there. Well, I guess actually, excuse me, that's a Virgo. That's another thing. I'm getting ahead of myself. That will be another video. But so basically between now and August 22nd is what I'm saying, because you'll have more activations of the inner child. That's what I'm saying here. Because Cancer and Leo are both really connected to different aspects of your inner child, your inner child at different ages. So that's why those childhood energies come back up, those old patterns. I mean, you may not even know they're from childhood either. By the way, you may not recognize that, say, your problems with men or women come from your relationship with your father or your mother. And so that's a lot of what's being activated right now. It might be a good time for having some of that recognition if you're dealing with some of these. It might be a good time for, going deep within and asking yourself, to what extent are you still replaying your past personal history? And history is a powerful energy. It's an interesting thing. It's very valuable in many ways. Our history can, if we're willing to look at it more objectively, it can inform us about what has shaped us, what has shaped you. But then also, moving forward in the present moment, you get to make a new history if you want to. But you can only do that if you're conscious of how your history has informed you. So I really am feeling this, and listening to my guides on this. This is what is coming up right now for this particular summer of 2022. For the month of June, from here on out, I'm filming this on June 20th. The solstice is June 21st. And basically between now and the equinox, the September equinox, I believe, is on the 21st. I do have that somewhere here, but of September. So you've got a 3-month cycle where you're working on clearing out some of those old family patterns, those old histories. And I'm speaking mainly about personal histories here. But of course, the rays of the great sun, our great star, of course it shines on the entire planet, and it is activating or triggering, depending on how you want to look at it, collective responses too. So of course, there is a collective journey that is dealing with cleansings of these old insecurities and such a deep need for replenishment and nourishment. Cancer is a nurturing sign, a nourishing sign, and some might say the caregiver, but it has to start with caregiving to self. Like that old saying about, like, if you're riding on a plane and something goes wrong, put your own oxygen mask on first before you do it for somebody else. So yeah, and with all these feeling energies coming up from Cancer for the next month, and by month I mean again June 20th to approximately July 21st. You may need to focus a bit on your replenishment and having some fun and nurturing yourself, and you may need to take a step back from relationships that have been draining you, and maybe the thing about being a nurturer and somebody who cares, and I don't really like the word just caretaker, but maybe a caregiver or even a co-carer. Maybe that's a better way of thinking of it. If you're a giver, though, sometimes though it is necessary to take a step back and let others do their own healing journey, deal with their own karma a little bit. There are some parts of the journey that we all have to undertake alone, so to speak. I mean, we can have community around us, but there are some parts where nobody can hold your hand for it. There's certain aspects that you have to do, or that I'm really saying the people in your life have to do. So, and if you've been feeling, and I know I've had some of this, wore out, overwhelmed, frustrated, particularly if there is one area of life or one relationship, where you're just feeling very frustrated or overwhelmed or just, disgusted, lots of emotions, that could be a signal that it's time to just take a step back and, maybe concentrate on something else for a while. And either let that situation be if you can, or that person. Yes, just let it be if you can. Let it do what it's going to do. Now, obviously, if you have small children and they're in need of attention, you can't just let it be. So don't just, leave your kids, without any help. But, if it's something where you're not sure if you can just take a step back, then find a way, delegate, get some help for you. And listen, one of the things I think comes up, right now is what I'm getting is that with this summer solstice activation, all of us, you, me, all of us, we may be looking for our nourishment and our help from a relationship over here, a person or an activity, and maybe it's not providing that and we're getting frustrated. So it's time to pull your energy and your attention back in. And if you need outer support and nourishment, as I think we all need some, you need to look for that in a new direction, okay? If the direction you've been seeking that sustenance from is not providing, and listen, maybe there's a person in your life or people or a project or a love that is just really great and has fed you for a long time. It's been a deep part of your history, but maybe right now it can't carry you through this particular time. Maybe you have to, I think what I'm saying really, and what the guides are saying, is seek other sources of inspiration. But first you have to move through your emotions around it, become aware of your history, and then when the sun enters into Leo around July 20th or so, that's when we focus more on the inspiration and the creativity, okay? So for now, it's a time of getting replenished, looking at what patterns are coming up from your inner child. Watch out for those infantile old insecurities coming back up. Just be aware, and if they do come back up, don't get angry about it if you can. Instead, just be very loving and nurturing to yourself. I think all of you who watch this channel, that, love is so healing, that energy of love, but we sometimes forget that we need to turn that into ourselves first. Have patience with ourselves. And I think even more than love, or an aspect of love that is so important, is tolerance of self and others, and forgiveness. We have to continually be forgiving ourselves for our imperfections and our lacks. That's the message of Virgo, which comes later in the cycle. That's the time from August 21st to September 21st, because Virgo is that quest for perfection, and that's contained in the summer sequence too. We're moving through, looking at our family roots, our family connections, the histories that come deep from childhood. And by the way, family can also mean your spiritual family, that tribe that you identify with. It's a deep identification. We start here in this part of the cycle, and all of the programming we have around that and the history. And then hopefully we begin to rewrite that history as we become more aware of it. That's what the energies of the sun in Leo are later in the cycle, July 20th to August, 22nd or so. And we get inspired, tap in. If you take time to get replenished now in the next 4 weeks, then you will be more inspired in the next 4 weeks after that. And then, you can start, working towards that feeling of perfection within self, or just, topping it off, making it better, bringing out the best, actually, is how I think of it. But part of this all is forgiveness of self, tolerance of self, just realizing, yes, you're an unlimited spiritual being. That's true. On the spiritual level, you are perfect and wise, but in the physical 3D dimension, you're human, okay? You're having a human experience at least. So, and it's like it's built into the video game here that you will have limitations. You will not be perfect. And, you have to cut yourself some slack. And then maybe with that, you can cut others some slack. Now, you don't have to, how should I say it? It's good to have healthy boundaries. And if cutting somebody else some slack means cutting yourself, like actually hurting yourself, I say don't do that, okay? There is a difference between tolerance and kindness and love. In other words, cutting people slack, giving them allowance, and then enabling enabling destructive behavior. And sometimes it's hard to tell where that line is. And I can't always say how you tell that, except for it's an intuition, it's a heart energy, or maybe it's a third eye energy. Wisdom. Wisdom tells us. I think even if you have to walk away from a situation, you can still have that energy of tolerance in your heart. What I'm saying when I say tolerance, okay? All I'm saying is the recognition that we're all human. We all have limitations. I don't consider myself a traditional Christian, but I think, when the Bible says, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, I think there's a truth in that. If you look at it metaphysically, in that if the glory of God is the glory of the higher self, the God within, yes, all of us mere humans who are also very godlike in many ways, we have fallen short of our higher selves. We have, I don't really want to use the word sin, but if you want to use that word, you can. We have fallen short. We have missed the mark. We have, at times not lived up to our potential, and we will at times in the future not live up to our potential, because it's hard being human, and having so many choices and being in the 3D world and not always being as connected to our spiritual senses. So, again, cut yourself some slack, cut others some slack, even if it's somebody that you choose to not be in relationship with anymore, that you have to walk away from. You can still, carry this energy of kindness, of tolerance and love. It's cosmic love. This is cosmic love. It doesn't have to be attached to everybody. It's loving with a sort of detached sort of way, which is very freeing, by the way. Alrighty, well, on that note, I think that's all I'm going to say on this new cycle for today, but there may be other videos about this 3-month cycle that we're in, this summertime activation for those of us in the north, wintertime activation for those of you in the south. So let's get activated. Let's cleanse in the emotions, cleanse and look at parts of the personal history we need to release. Look at parts of the personal history we need to celebrate, honor, and remember. Think about what history you want to write, what you want to create, in this cycle going forward. And maybe just choose 1 or 2 areas of focus, like an intention that you can set for this cycle, this solstice cycle. It could be something as, worldly or mundane as fitness, okay? I've been thinking about that lately. I want to get back in shape again. I'm, like many, not on the top of my game where I was at before the COVID lockdowns. So, still pretty good, but yeah, wouldn't mind getting back to the top of the game. So with that's a worldly issue. Or maybe, an example from the spiritual realm might be, focusing on communing with your guides in the next few months, getting more of that connection open, either in the third eye or the heart, depending on how you want to look at it. Developing your own psychic abilities, or going deeper with astrology, your own studies. Or for me, I'm interested in connecting with our celestial brothers and sisters and our otherworldly intelligences. That's kind of a new thing I found coming through. So we'll see where that goes, or if it goes anywhere. But yeah, if you can, set a focus, or 1 or 2 maybe. I know some of you don't like to be limited. I don't like to either. So do 2 if you want. That way, in case the one doesn't work out, you have the other one, right? Alrighty. So I look forward to hearing more from the guides on this, and also feel free to share about how you're experiencing this cycle, what the energies and emotions are for you coming up, and maybe what your focus is that you're choosing for this June solstice, summer solstice cycle. Until next time, I'm Psychic Cynthia with my Atlantean teacher guides and the celestial guides, wishing you much light and higher awakening.